Acting Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says the U.S. will vigorously prosecute anyone involved in the purchase or sale of sanctioned Iranian oil. Make sure you look into Malaysia. Yeah, I know a lady whose ex-husband is laundering oil, has been laundering oil for Iran for decades, by the way. Get in contact with her. They already know who I'm talking about. The government knows. The government knows everybody. Anyways, good stuff there. Go after them. Kick some doors down. Next story. CENTCOM has announced that a blockade of the maritime traffic from the Strait of Hormuz has officially started at 10 a.m. Eastern today. The kids are happy because no more terror oil is going to be flowing. They have made exceptions, though. Where is it? Where's those exceptions? Damn it. They have made exceptions, though. We'll get to that later. Iran, by the way, threatened to close the Bab el-Mandeb, which is the... again, they don't control that one, but they know the terror cells that do, right?
Absolutely. We're talking about Bab al-Mandab, which is a different area where the Iranians could use their proxy, the Houthis in Yemen, to try to block off international shipping. And they have threatened to do this if there is a blockade on their ports near the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, it sounds like Saudi Arabia needs to just expand their territory, right? Hormuz. Let me find this real quick. Let me show you what they're talking about. Let's go to maps. Here we go. Here's the Strait of Hormuz. We own this now. We're controlling it. We're blocking all ships from going in and out of it, with exceptions, and I'll show you in a bit. That's the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's right here. Okay, they think they control this for some reason, even though it's this side is Oman right here, and Oman should get half of that. But they wouldn't mind even Oman's side. This over here is the Red Sea. And this over here is the strait they're talking about. Iran has nothing to do with the strait, but they do control the terrorists that live in this country here called Yemen. This bigger country here is called Saudi Arabia, third largest military in the world. They can very easily take all of this and double their oceanfront territory, which would be a fantastic idea. Why not have these prosperous, these prosperous, hardworking, productive people here control this trash land here who produce nothing but terrorists? Why not? I'm telling you, we need to just start ignoring the UN. They need to just take this land and say, if you all want to stay here, you're all going to have to work and you're going to follow our laws, or you can go to Oman over here. That's going to suck for them. They have to take all that garbage, right? Well, if they want to share an ideology, they can do so. Huh? So yeah, very terrible, very terrible. That's what they're trying to close now. That's what they're threatening. Ship traffic by... Hold on. Damn it. I'm not going to play this. Freaking, that sucks, man. The helicopter noise is annoying. You know what I mean? Anyways. By the way, because we are closing because we've closed the Hormuz Strait, this is a map of ship traffic, and apparently they are all redirecting to go get oil from the Gulf of America. Yeah, look at that. So not only has he managed to pump up the price of oil, he has managed to make us the #1 seller of it now. Look at that. And that good stuff. Yes, it sucks. It makes our oil a little expensive, but as long as we are getting the cash flows, because if they get the cash flows, then guess what they're going to do with it? Buy out our elections, right? They're going to register another 100,000 Yulkova ballots, steal our election in 2028, and bring in another 20 million Sand Mexicans to invade our country. Yeah. So that's good stuff. Oil's flowing out of our country now. I mean, that's, we really got to limit that. I'll tell you this, Mr. President. If you would like to appease the United States citizens, what you should do is do an export tariff on basic necessities, things such as food and energy. Okay, this will disincentivize our oil producers from exporting the oil, and that will actually keep oil prices domestically lower. Okay, so we'll have better prices, and I will have better inflation, because inflation is becoming an issue again. So I personally think you should do that. Basic commodities should not be exported freely. Okay, so just a very basic basic pork belly export tariff. That's it. Okay. Yeah, it'll hurt the oil company stocks, but you know, you'll keep the people happy, win you the midterm maybe, right? Next story. Let's go back here real quick because there's some stuff that popped up here. Let's see. There we go. Not that one. Not that one. There it is.
Firm reports.
What is this one? A ship tracking firm reports 121 empty oil tankers are heading towards the United States to load crude oil and fuel as tensions arise in the. So these are all the ships headed our way now.
121 empty oil tankers are making their way to the United States of America. 68 of those 121 vessels are very large crude carriers capable of carrying 2 million barrels apiece.
Looks like we got new customers, guys. Now would be a great time for oil export tariffs. And you should also export tariff a lot of other basic commodities like food. Yeah? You know, since they need it, right? Telling you. When you just follow Joe Biden's model, okay? If there is excess demand for something, you tax it so there's less demand. That's by the way, that was the thinking behind the Inflation Reduction Act, which did anything but reduce inflation. In fact, it was a rebranded Green New Deal. That's what it was. It drove inflation up like crazy.
President Trump is urging.
But in this case, that policy would only drive up inflation for the rest of the world, right? Not us.
President Trump has urged countries squeezed by Iran's disruption of the Strait of Hormuz to turn to American energy supplies instead. Well, it would appear perhaps they are obliging him. They are listening to Trump. The president told Fox, quote, China can send their ships to the U.S., China can send their ships to Venezuela, while also saying that empty oil-carrying ships from many nations are all headed to the U.S. to load up. That from the president of the United States. A ship tracking firm.
Yeah, good stuff. What else is there that's related? Let's go to the Brits real quick. The Brits had their little house meeting today. They were asked, can I ask the Prime Minister that no British military assets or brave personnel will be put at risk in a foolish idea to blockade the strait?
So
this is
can
the response.
I echo the comments about the President's statement on Easter Sunday, that in an evening he could destroy a 2,500-year-old civilization. But on the question of the Straits of Hormuz...
No. The Iranian country, the nation of Iran is not 2,500 years old. Persia was 2,500 years old. Iran has only been around for 47 years. Okay?
Isn't it clear that the straits were open before the president foolishly launches a legal war? And can I ask the Prime Minister to say quite clearly that no British military assets or brave personnel would be put at risk in a foolish idea to blockade the straits even further, which came from the president yesterday?
Kim, for that. It is, of course, Iran that's putting in the chokehold on the strait. That is wrong, and the strength of feeling across the Gulf last week was very, very clear to me. I can assure him that we are not getting involved in the proposal to blockade the strait. On the contrary,
I can assure you we're not getting involved in the operation to blockade the strait. Yeah. That's where these stand. By the way, thank you very much, David Stores, for the donation. Thank you, David. You're awesome. Every day. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's see. Let's go to here real quick. There's another clip from that same parliament. Where is it? There it is. They're saying, someone says, shouldn't the very first step be to end all U.S. access to British military bases for Trump's war in Iran? Fuck my ass, dude. Twitter, look at this. Nothing works. Nothing works on Twitter. You guys are busy banning everyone. Fix this. Fix this problem. Anyways, forget it. You guys know where the Brits stand. They're fucking useless. Australia is also useless. Australia says they're also going to be not getting involved. I'll tell you this. We blockade it. We charge security fees. Okay, we're going to keep everyone safe from terror. Okay, and we collect that money, and that's going to fund our military operation in Iran indefinitely. Okay, permanent occupation, and by the way, seizing the Hormuz Strait, that's also going to give us a corridor to funnel weapons into the Iranian people's hands so that they can take out the government themselves, and we don't have to do it. We got better things to do. We got to deal with Cuba. We got to deal with Nicaragua. We got to deal with Colombia. Okay, we're dealing with Ecuador right now. We got a lot to get through. And by the way, you know what else we got to do? We got to seize the Bering Strait. Yeah, we got to seize the Bering Strait so we could toll that and charge Russia and China to use that. Yeah. Anyways, next story. Iranian says, despite defiant statements from the U.S. and Iran, the door remains open for further diplomacy for a second round. It says within days. That's according to regional officials. I'm guessing that's from Pakistan. That was reported by Wall Street Journal. I don't know if that means anything anymore because it's Wall Street Journal. By the way, Trump's going to be speaking in a few minutes. I don't see a notification, but when it does, we'll watch it here. Okay. Next story. Russia offers to take in Iran's enriched uranium. Yeah, of course you would, because then you give it right back to them when President Newsom steals the 2028 election. Yeah, fat chance we ain't gonna give you shit. That's gonna be ours. You want to buy from us? We'll do that. How about that? How about this? We'll jack the uranium, and then we'll sell it to you in exchange for the Donbass region. How about that? Yeah. Anyways, you guys get the idea. Next story. The exceptions about the the blockade in the Hormuz the blockade in the Hormuz Strait, by the way, has exceptions. Temporary exception, by the way. If you are a tanker, if you're a ship in general and you're stuck within that pocket and you want to at least get out, you're allowed to get out. Is what we're allowing them to do. That way they can go buy our oil and deliver it wherever they want, right? But oil in Iran, that's not happening anymore. Just that pipe dream is long sailed. Not happening anymore. Next story. Iran military warns that no Gulf ports will be safe if its own is threatened. Oh, they're threatening to blow up Bahrain's ports. They're threatening to blow up the UAE's ports. They're threatening to blow up Saudi Arabia's ports. Yeah. These guys, it sounds like they need to be exterminated. Next story. Tom Cotton was interviewed this morning on Fox and Friends and responded to Iran's threats about attacking the ports of other Islamic countries in the area.
If Iran follows through on its threat this morning to target ports in the region for our friends in places like Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates,
including the Red Sea,
obviously we're not just going to sit back idly and let that happen. We're going to re-engage in part to help protect our troops and our ships in the region and help protect our friends as well. If Iran follows through on its threat this morning to...
that looped. There we go. What are we looking at here? Next story. U.S. naval forces have begun mine-sweeping operations in the Strait of Hormuz following the breakdown of negotiations in Iran.
Now, the U.S. military will begin enforcing a full-scale blockade of all maritime traffic into and out of Iran as Navy minesweepers clear a path to open the Strait of Hormuz after high-stakes peace talks end without a deal.
See, Trump just tweeted this out here. He says 34 ships went through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday, which is by far the highest number since this foolish closure began. But we just closed it, right? That's weird. That's weird. Next story. CENTCOM has warned that vessels entering the Strait of Hormuz without authorization will be intercepted and seized by U.S. forces. Oh.
Blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, it's underway. U.S. Central Command issuing a note warning the blockade applies to all vessel traffic regardless of the flag. And they write this: any vessel entering or departing the blockaded area without authorization is subject to interception, diversion, and capture. The blockade will not impede neutral transit passage through the Strait of Hormuz to or from non-Iranian destinations. So,
well, next story. Oh, China is panicking, by the way. Actually, hold on. Let's do this one. China's panicking. You know the Spratly Islands, the man-made islands that China made so that they can claim a 100-mile economic exclusion zone. They're trying to claim that whole body of water for themselves, even though it also borders Vietnam, Philippines, and also Malaysia. but they want to claim it for themselves because they're like, oh, these are our islands. We get 100 miles out. No, it's only for naturally formed islands. Okay, literally in the international agreement, international maritime agreement, it only applies to naturally formed islands. It's too bad you don't read English. Anyways, they're so panicked that we are going to we're going to set up shop on those islands to kind of take it over. They're pouring cyanide on their islands. Yeah. The Philippines has accused China of poisoning disputed waters. Yeah, they're pouring cyanide on in the waters around the Spratly Islands, a flashpoint in the disputed South. They call it the South China Sea. It's also called the East Filipino Sea, by the way. It's also called the West Vietnamese Sea. It's also called the North Malaysian Sea, right? Beijing claims the strategic South Island Sea. We already know all that. Anyways, so a very interesting move right there, that they're dumping cyanide on their own islands. Yeah. Next story. Trump tweeted this out early. He says, Iran's navy is laying at the bottom of the sea, completely obliterated, 158 ships. What we have not hit are their small number of what they call fast attack ships, because we did not consider them much of a threat. He says, warning, if any of those ships come anywhere close to our blockade, they will be immediately eliminated using the same method to kill that we use against the drug dealers on drug dealers' boats in the in the Gulf of America. It is quick and brutal. P.S. 98.2% of drugs coming into the U.S. by ocean or sea have dropped.